Welcome back to the Quantum Connection podcast. We are so excited you're here for another amazing episode. Of course, I have my co-host Heather Crimson here. I myself, Vanessa Baldwin, and today we have a fantastic guest. An inspirational story that is just every time I see it, I'm blown away by what you've been capable of, Rachael. She's known as Ribeye Rach on Instagram. Definitely give her a follow if you're not already, although she has quite the following, because your story is just so touching and inspirational, and how you've come and overcome everything you've overcome is just such a beautiful story. And we're just so happy to have you here and just to spread the message that you can and will get better. And I just love that you always say that. And I love that you really organically share your experiences of how you're living your life and how people can learn from you and just learn from your account of how to create a really healthy lifestyle. So I think it's an amazing story and an inspiration, and I'm so glad that you're here with us to share with the Quantum Connection podcast. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Vanessa. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Rachael. Reading over your website and learning more about you in depth, just your story it's really profound, right? Going from a bedridden for sounds like several years. I don't know how many years.
Yeah, I would say mostly bedridden for 3 and then pretty severely ill for around 7 years.
That's a long time. And then to where you are now, which is vibrant, healthy, hiking, walking, right? And so help us understand what is your sort of understanding of what got you there? I know you mentioned like nervous system retraining, and I'm not sure what you are comfortable sharing. Like, was there trauma in the background? Was there like an accident you had? Like, what put your system in such distress? It's like not all genetic, like we know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of things, growing up not eating very well, eating a lot of ultra processed foods, not much protein, and having kind of a higher stress lifestyle and in a way that was like I just didn't really rest, if that makes sense. And I was one of those people that always was kind of having to be doing something, and I guess overachiever maybe would be the term that you could describe it as. But I think just a combination of things. I actually made a post about this on Instagram a couple weeks ago, kind of why did I get sick, and just all these different factors I think played a role, and it's never just one thing. And so I think just in environment, toxins in products, and um, exposures to certain pharmaceuticals, and then that like hustle culture and high stress lifestyle, not knowing how to rest, not knowing how to care for my nervous system, not fueling my body right.
Yeah.
And so I like to kind of say that everybody's a ticking time bomb in a way in our modern society, unless you're doing things to prevent getting sick, unless you're doing lots of things to take care of your body and take care of your health, then everyone's kind of a ticking time bomb. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think what may have kind of thrown me over the edge was an infection. So growing up, I had kind of reoccurrent mononucleosis infections, and I was also later diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. And so I think sometimes people get really hyperfixated on the infections itself, but I think that was more like the straw that broke the camel's back, if that makes sense. And when I would get those infections, because I didn't have that foundation of nutrition and nervous system support, that it came to a point where my body wasn't able to handle those infections and clear infections like they were, like my body was supposed to do, or detoxify like it's supposed to do, just because that toxic load was just too high, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Makes so
No.
sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
it makes complete sense. And everything is always multifactorial, right? Anytime anybody gets a disease, it's never just like this one root cause thing. And I like that you said like that go, 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 that hustle culture. We all have that. And I always, along my own healing journey, I might have been saying this to you recently, Heather, is like learning how to be a human being instead of a human doing all the time is just so important in regulating your nervous system and letting your body like have enough energy and capacity to heal. Like we don't always have to be doing like yeah, no, go lay out in the sun and just be, for a little while instead of always do.
Don't know
And
how to do that. Like we're so overstimulated that it's
yes.
so hard to even know how to rest. Like when we're
Hmm.
resting, we have to be entertained all the time. And that's even something I've struggled with as I've been healing and gaining so much more capacity, is like almost wanting to fall into those past patterns of just always having to be doing something. And so I have to make a conscious effort to tell myself to rest. And it isn't easy, especially in our modern society. And it's just everybody's just go, go, go. And the more you do, the better it is, right? But it's not true. We need rest. So
Or we
Yeah, I have to make a conscious effort of it too. I have to remind myself, like I'll say, I'm going on the walk without the phone, I don't need to listen to the podcast today. I'm just going to go outside and take a walk, or I'm going to go lay on the sun and I'm not going to have anything with me. I'm just going to listen to the birds chirp and that's fine. Or just even like eating, I'm sure like taking your meal and sitting outside and eating outside and not being like on your phone or doing this or doing that, like all that makes such a big difference in how your body digests food, regulating your nervous system, all of that. So simple, but we just, unfortunately, our modern fast-paced society just doesn't allow for that kind of things to happen in our lifestyle like regularly. And that, yeah, can cause trouble.
it definitely
we have to make a conscious choice. We have to have a level of awareness to realize what's happening in how we are showing up in the world every day, right? How we're engaging in our lives, and that we get focused on all the things of the doing and what's going on around us and outside of us. And then we don't attend to the inner signals and signs of our body's symptoms, which are really about distress. Like, hey, we're running out of energy, or hey, we need time to rest and repair. And so I had the same crash, like, both of you. And my body was saying, we're going to do chronic fatigue now because you haven't been listening. And right. And so I like how you emphasize so much the nervous system aspect of your healing. You say that it is as important as diet, because people really want to focus on the doing part of the diet instead of the being, how we are in our bodies.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when people ask me what is the biggest factor in your recovery, I always like to say regulating and healing my nervous system, because it encompasses everything. It even encompasses diet, because what we eat wires our brain. And so yeah, for me, I at a certain point in my healing journey, I did all these diet changes and did see improvements, but I was still stuck in that chronic survival state, in that chronic fight or flight state where I didn't feel safe in my body. And I realized that, in order for me to get the nutrients I needed from the food I was eating and to be able to properly digest and detoxify, like I needed to address my nervous system. And that was the missing link for me. And I think it's kind of the same way for many people that are struggling to heal from chronic illness. And I'm sure you two are being in the quantum health field, it connects to that. Like, to regulate our nervous system, we need to be connected with nature and our circadian rhythm, and all those things just are so important for nervous system health.
Yes, absolutely. Right now you're outside beautifully, like exactly right then and there, right? That explains it. And I always see you outside. I see you moving your body outside. I see you with your blue blockers. I see you like doing all the circadian things. And I'm like, oh, she gets it. Like, because that also is a big part of nervous system healing, because when you're in nature, you're sending your body all those safety signals. When you see the sunrise, when you're grounding and earthing, like you're sending your body all the safety signals it needs to help the nervous system regulate. I don't think it's everything when it comes to nervous system regulation. Of course, there's more things that we have to do, but it's a big part of it, because even artificial light at night can be, dysregulating to the nervous system really big time. So like, these are the things that people, I think, and I want to get your take on this. I'm curious because I've never really done any like nervous system whole like programs, but I've looked into like Gupta and I've looked into like Irene Lyons, and some of it I'm like I like and then I don't like. And I guess you take a piece of everything from, everything you learn. I'm like, if I always just followed my instincts when I was at my worst of my healing, that might have been really bad. Like especially when it came to diet, or especially when it came to like just some choices might not have been so good on my healing path. So I'm curious, like when with the programs that you've worked with, like I guess did you like take pieces of it and like did you find that you felt like some of those things maybe didn't align with you? Because some things just don't resonate with me personally. That sometimes in those programs that they say, I'm like, well, if my body wants McDonald's, I still don't think that's a good idea to go out and do it. You know what I mean? Like you have to have some sort like, so there's like, I think you know what I'm trying to say, right? There's some sort of like conscious decision making still, not just follow every instinct in your body.
Honestly, I like there were things that so I started with the DNRS program. I later went through the Gupta program, and now I'm going through Primal Trust. This is just because I really enjoy learning about this stuff, not because everybody needs to do those programs, right? But when I started the DNRS program, I was already doing the carnivore diet, already trying to live more of like a low tox lifestyle, looking into circadian health and stuff like that. And the brain retraining was definitely like this huge aspect of my healing that I needed. But there were a lot of things about the program that I loved, and there were a lot of things about the program that I didn't love and I didn't resonate with. And something about the DNRS program that I think I always feel like I have to, like when I recommend it to someone, I have to have this like big caveat, because it's like, just remember that like it's you healing you, not the program healing you. And I felt like there was kind of this notion that just stick to this program, that's all you have to do, then you'll get better. And that just never resonated with me. And I think that one of the reasons why I did so well with the program was because I just took what resonated with me and left the rest, and I made it my own. And I think some people are so hung up on trying to follow programs perfectly, even if they may not like resonate with them, or if it may not be like quite the right modality for them at that point in their healing journey. And so I think programs are great tools, especially because all this stuff is really foreign. Like nobody really knows how to rewire their brain or care for their nervous system, and visualizing it feels like just hard. And so having a program can be really helpful to have a structure. I think especially like for people that are really, really sick and they have the time on their hands to dedicate to putting in the work to heal their nervous system. But yeah, there are definitely things I don't like about it. Like the Gupta program actually did touch on diet and time in nature and circadian health a little bit. So that was one of the kind of the pros on the side of the Gupta program. But there are things about it, like they said, avoid red meat. And as somebody that saw so much healing from red meat, I was like, well, I don't agree with that, and that's, I guess, what I try to do when I share about them is I'm like, okay, well, this is what I liked about it. This is what I didn't, you can find the same and just take things that work for you or that you think will help you, and don't be afraid to just leave the things that don't resonate. And so that's been my experience with brain retraining. I was really strict about it in probably the first 6 to 8 months, and then as time went on, I kind of added in more things on my own and continued my learning and just have my own practice of brain retraining and somatic practices and nervous system regulation. And so I think it's important to just make it your own.
Yeah, I love
that.
what you're saying, Rachel, because it kind of just ties in exactly with what Vanessa was saying. We have to have the discernment about what will serve us. What is it that feels good in our bodies that we can actually have the what I say discernment? It's like, is this helping me? Right? Is this nourishing me? Or is this something that I'm trying to do because I'm supposed to follow the rules of this guru, trainer, whatever, right? Who's telling me this is good for me? At some point, we have to be able to sense inside as to whether this is actually something that's helpful or not. And that's really tricky to do, especially if you've been ill for a long time, because you're already disconnected from your body, right? And it's hard to really sense what feels good. But I think what you're saying in the nervous system is, how can we rewire for a baseline of safety in the body versus being in fight or flight or freeze? That's the high sympathetic or we're in shutdown mode, which is too much parasympathetic, right? We're in dorsal vagal. So it's really important to understand or to get to know your body well enough and understand what is the difference, what is happening inside when it's this way and what is happening when it's this way, and what is the in between, which in the world of therapy that I've been hanging out in for a while, it's the window of tolerance. Like what tolerance is not a good word, but what is the middle part that feels good? So could you just let us know? I'm so curious now that you've had so much experience in these programs. I love it. What things do you use that have been the most impactful and helpful for you to feel safe and grounded in your body?
Yeah, I think for me, visualization has been one of the most impactful things for signaling safety. And I love that you mentioned safety because I think that's so foundational for nervous system regulation and just self-healing in general. But visualization, it's interesting because I'm actually not somebody that can truly visualize. So when I close my eyes and I start doing a visualization verbally, like I see nothing. I see black. And I can't like close my eyes and picture an apple. Like I don't see anything there. It's just black. But even just going through that and thinking about all the five senses, drawing that all in, and that has really helped with signaling safety. And then another one, which is just very simple, is time in nature and just time in nature without technology and without even maybe without even a book, just being able to lay in the grass and with your bare feet and just under the sun and close your eyes and just like listen to the sounds and be present in nature. That has been so healing for me. I was looking back to, when I was in kind of my more intense physical healing phase, and that was all I could really do was focus on healing. And I remembered that I would spend hours a day just like laying outside and doing absolutely nothing, but just it was so healing. And so I think it really can't be underestimated how powerful nature is for healing.
100%. I always say nature is the parasympathetic. And for me too, whenever my nervous system doesn't feel regulated, that's where I tend to go. Like it's just where I tend to feel better and feel more calm. And, earthing is known to regulate the nervous system. It's like one of the things that it does by sending those frequencies back into your body. So I love that. So that's amazing. I'm so glad that that was
I was
healing for
really
you.
excited to hear there was a scientific reason for why it feels so good to be barefoot. When I was a kid, I never loved wearing shoes. We would go on vacations and my parents would be like, okay, put your shoes on. And I'd be like, oh, I didn't bring any.
We shouldn't, we should, we have to like children are more instinctive than us, really. They
Yeah.
really are. And we have to follow those instincts. Like, I have one son who would go in the snow literally without a coat. Like he does not need a coat. His body is really fine. And honestly, it's probably good for him. So like, the teacher will call you up and be like, hey, so-and-so doesn't want to, I'm like, he's fine without his coat though, he's really okay. He runs hot. Like, so we have to like, kids are more instinctual. Like they just don't have those, I don't know, preconceived notions that we have to wear shoes. They're just like this, they know it feels good and they innately just follow.
I think that's why people feel so good when they go to the beach, because that's one of the only places where people just are barefoot in the ground and do have experience with grounding without even really knowing it.
Yeah.
And of course, swimming in the ocean is grounding too, right? So it's it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And all the minerals you get from the water. And also another thing is that you're away from those non-native frequencies typically in that
Mhm.
area, like a beach like that, or like where you live looks like a beautiful area of like less non-native frequencies, because those frequencies do interfere with the nervous system. So I love that you said about getting away from the technology and whatnot too, because they do dysregulate the nervous system. Like, I don't know if you've experienced with like turning the Wi-Fi off at night and things like that. I found that to be super helpful. I mean, we did switch to Ethernet here, but just turning the Wi-Fi off at night, the difference in my sleep was
Mm.
really immense because of the fact that those frequencies at night can dysregulate. They can keep you in the fight or flight instead of letting your body get into rest and digest. So it's like really interesting. Those are the things that I'd love to see included in those nervous system programs too. But I don't, there has to be a balance of
Mhm.
fear,
Yeah.
right? And this is an important thing for you to probably bring up too, like of, okay, am I fearful of these things? Am I going to be okay if I don't have my blue blockers? Yes, it's okay. Like if you forgot, it's all right. But, I do know that those things are supportive to my health, right?
I love that you mentioned that because it's been something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And it's just interesting because I think when people see all these things, they become afraid and they think they have to change everything at once. And that's just too much. You know, you have to go at your own pace and you don't have to compare yourself to someone who has been working on this for 3 years, right? And so I think it's a hard balance because some people like do this 180 and they just decide, okay, because this made me fearful, then it must not matter. And the fear is contributing to my sickness. So I just should stop trying. But I that doesn't resonate with me. And I think sometimes I feel like I don't really fit in the nervous system community and I don't really fit in the diet community because I'm like, both are important, you know, and both sides are kind of like, this is the only way, this is the only thing, and that you need to do to heal. And I'm like, but both are important. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think it's just really important to pace yourself when it comes to learning about things. I know, I have had to do that. I've had periods in my healing where I just stop researching, and I'm a researcher. I love learning. I love, you know, learning about how to optimize my health, but I think you can become too fixated on it. And so it just depends on what point you are at in your healing and what nervous system state you're in when you're researching. Like, are you researching to fix yourself or out of fear or desperation, or are you researching because you want to support your body and you want to learn more so that you can best optimize your health and not be so hyper fixated on it, if that makes sense. And so it's
Totally.
balance because there are a lot of things in our modern world that really are working against our nervous system health. And so I think when people start to realize that and they start kind of waking up to all of these things that they weren't aware of before, that can trigger fear, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
And
it
100%.
can get overwhelming because it's ubiquitous. And what are we going to do? We can't just, take ourselves out of our context and go live somewhere tropical, remote, island somewhere. So so one thing when you said fear earlier, Rachel, what I was wondering is those years and how old were you when you first started to get pretty debilitated?
so I had kind of a couple phases, like when I was 15 years old in high school, that's when I was diagnosed with celiac. I had autoimmune issues going on, and then I had a few good years, and then at about 20 was when I got sick again. And so I had some signs growing up, but when I got really, really sick was around 20.
And you had a pretty, I mean, it's an extended period of time where you were really struggling. So what I want to know is, and I don't know if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine, but like, how did you get through that? That just seems so defeating, depressing. Like, I've had moments, to be honest, when I was not even nearly as sick as you, and I felt pretty suicidal. Like but there were other factors, like I was kind of alone and isolated, but after a breakup, but that kind of thing. But I'm like, how did you get through that? What was going on in your mind? What was the emotional landscape like? And how did you start to bring yourself out of that?
Think at first it like when you get sick, you kind of don't expect it to be forever. So when I first got sick, I just kind of thought I'll go to the doctor, they'll figure it out, I'll be better, I'll be back to my normal life. But then as it started to progress and I started to realize that things were getting worse and the doctors weren't really helping like I expected they would, then it was really hard mentally having to give up a lot of the things that I loved and having to just adjust to a totally different lifestyle and um obviously just all the debilitating symptoms and I guess feeling like wondering if I was ever going to be better again. Thankfully I did have a support a good support system with my family, and I think that really made a huge difference for me and in that like mentally during my chronic illness, because I know a lot of people don't have that, and I realized I'm very blessed that I had a supportive family. They believed me and they supported me, and so that was really helpful for me, and that kind of gave me a purpose. And then my faith has really been an anchor for me as well, and um just believing that like God had some sort of purpose for me through my
Definitely.
was kind of really what helped me get through. And it's interesting because my husband, so I was actually married right before I got really, really sick. So right before I got into like the bed bound phase, I got married. And I actually like wanted to wait to get married until I got better, but it turned out to be good timing because we were able to like, I was able to have the wedding, even though there were adjustments that needed to be made because I was pretty sick at the time. But anyways, where was I going with that? Oh yes, my husband during this time, he always kind of felt like it was going to be okay in the end. And I always kind of felt I kind of had more of like, I don't know if it's going to be okay. I don't know if I'm going to live. Like, I don't know if like even going to make it. But I had more of like a trust that there was purpose in my suffering and that like um, that in the next life I could be healthy if that didn't happen in this life. And so I had kind of, I guess that was kind of what kept me going. But I just think it's interesting looking back that my husband kind of like knew that everything would be okay, but I didn't. So
I think he was sent there at the right time to be in your life. And
yeah.
having support through a chronic illness, I mean, it is probably the most important thing because I know Heather and I have both been through chronic illness as well. And I know what it feels like to leave a doctor's office and they'd be like, there's nothing I can do. Like, I don't know what to do with you. I've left many doctor's offices crying, being like, well, now what do I do? Where do I go? Because
That's the
when
worst
you
answer to get.
I mean, really, it breeds so much fear because when you've been in the medical system all your life and you go to these professionals who are supposed to be the ones to help you when you're in, dire stress and need, and they're like, I don't know, there's nothing I can do. I mean, they told me, okay, well, just remove your bladder. I'm like, well, that's not really an option, like so. I mean, I can very much relate, So then it's like, if you don't have people to lean on and that support, and even when you do, sometimes it can still become very isolating because you feel alone because they're not experiencing what you're experiencing. So I know I felt that along my journey, and finding people, like even just being in the quantum space and my homeopathy group and all these things have made all that support from all of them who've been in difficult times as well. Like that has really helped too. Like having people that, even like Maddie, who we talked about, like having people to support you who are also in that same boat, like, okay, we're going to get through this. We're going to figure it out, bounce ideas. Like it's all been really helpful. So I don't know. I just very relate when I talk to you. And I'm also curious, did you go down the functional medicine rabbit hole or did you just avoid that? Or did you just do the allopathic and then you kind of like, I'm going to figure this out on my own? Or did you like I mean, obviously you did the Lyme testing, you said, right? So you definitely did some testing, right? So how was that experience? I'm always curious.
So I would say the first like 3 to 4 years of being really sick, I went the Western medicine route. And for anyone watching that is wondering what illnesses I was diagnosed with, I'll just kind of share in case that context helps. So over the years, I was diagnosed with Ehlers-danlos Syndrome, dysautonomia, gastroparesis, chiari malformation, celiac, cervical spinal instability, dysautonomia. I don't know. The list goes on, a
What is
lot of
the Chiari
it.
one? What is the Chiari one again?
I don't know that one.
It's a herniation. It's when the cerebellum herniates into the spinal canal and like blocks off CSF flow. And so I had high pressure in my brain as well. And I know, like for me now, I don't identify with any of those diagnoses, so it feels funny to even share. But I know that like other people are at different points in their journeys, and it can be helpful to have that relatability when people are dealing with those diagnoses. So that's why I do share. But what was the question that you had asked? Sorry about
I asked about functional medicine. I love that you said that you were letting go of the diagnoses, and everybody is in their own spot, but that is an important part of like you don't this is not you. You know what I mean? That's really important. But yeah, I asked you about functional medicine. Did you go down that rabbit
yes,
hole?
after that 3 or 4 years, and I had 5 neurosurgeries, major neurosurgeries during that time, and I just continued to get sicker. And a year later, after the last surgery that I had, they were recommending that I have more surgery. And I was at the point where I was like, every day I felt like I was dying, like I didn't feel like I could go on any longer. And I just was so, so sick. And I was like, what's going to be different about this surgery than the last ones that didn't help? that actually in the end made me sicker. And I just intuitively did not feel right. And so I told myself then that like I was just going to be open-minded. I was going to look other places and I was going to see if there were any other things that I could do to try to get better, because whatever I had been doing was not working. And so that was kind of, you know, a little bit of a turning point. And I started to read books about nutrition, and I did some diets that didn't help. And I started trying acupuncture. And I did go to a functional medicine doctor and was diagnosed with Lyme disease, but I was given some pretty aggressive natural treatments that like literally like stirred the pot for me and just made it like my body wasn't able to handle treatments, you know, because my nervous system was just on high alert and reacting to everything. Everything was dangerous to my nervous system at the time. And so I did do a year and a half of Lyme disease treatment, and it was a mix of like natural stuff and antibiotics. So it's kind of like a blend. But it was rough. Like it was very like a brutal treatment, brutal reactions. And at one point I was getting hives all over my body every day. And just, I mean, I think maybe in the end, like maybe I saw like a 1% improvement. And so at the time that felt like, okay, but then I realized, okay, well, I don't think I'm going to really like get my life back through this, if that makes sense. And so that was when I started to see, I was in a Lyme disease Facebook group and I heard about carnivore, and I saw that somebody said all their chronic pain went away after a couple months of doing it. And I was like, that's interesting. So I went down that rabbit hole, and then I eventually tried the carnivore diet, and that did really, really help me, especially in terms of energy. So after a couple months, I was able to like sit up and start cooking my own meals, and I was able to attend some family dinners and functions, and I didn't have as severe of fatigue crashes, because when I was really sick, I experienced really severe fatigue crashes where like if I overdid it, and my doing it could be like sitting up and talking to someone for 20 minutes on a couch, you know, and that could send me into like 3 days of needing to be in a dark room with no light and sound, like because it was all this, and it's hard to describe, but just that any stimulation was just like painful, like deep in my brain. And so that started to lessen with the carnivore diet, and I started to do more and more, and my family and friends were noticing a big difference in me. And so from there, I kind of went into the nervous system space and started brain retraining. I think it was about 8 months later that I started brain retraining. So it's kind of cool because I saw like progress from the nutrition side, and then I saw progress from nervous system, and so I could tell that both of those things made a huge impact because I didn't start them at the same time. But yeah, and then from there, so it's been not quite 3 years ago that I started the carnivore diet, and I'd say about the last 3 years or so, I've kind of been slowly on the upward trajectory. And so, yeah, healing is not, I think sometimes when people are really sick, they want to find something that just like fixes them right away. And, you know, in a month they've gone from bedbound to living a normal life. And I'm not going to say that that's impossible, because anything is possible, but like, it's not likely that you're going to heal from a lifelong, I guess, like illness that's been building up inside of you even before you started experiencing symptoms, that you're going to heal from all that damage in a short amount of time. So, and I still consider myself to be healing, especially like when it comes to like processing trauma and that sort of thing. I still very much consider myself to be healing, but I also consider myself to be healthy. I consider myself to be living a normal life and just continuing to heal and optimize my health. So
yeah, we are always healing. Everybody's always healing every day. Like that's the truth of the matter. But yeah, beautifully said. So many wonderful things, and so proud of you though too. Like I have to say that, like for just like, you know, just keep pushing forward even through all these like really amazing, like really challenging times. Like it was just amazing. So really, really good. But we definitely are always healing.
Super inspirational. Just
Yeah.
the fortitude, right, and the tenacity that you had,
Yeah.
Rachael, to stay on a path. I mean, but what choice did you have? I mean, you had to find a way, right? So how would you describe like the symptoms? Like, I know you struggle with a lot of digestive issues and your sleep was probably compromised. So like, where are you at now? Tell us what feels better, what works better for you, and how you feel better.
So when I was really sick, I was having severe migraines, pretty much 24/7, severe neck pain, spinal pain, body aches. And like you said, I was barely sleeping just because of pain. And I think obviously like my circadian rhythm was non-existent at the time. When I did get really sick, I was kind of like in a dark home and didn't really get a lot of natural light. And so, yeah, I barely slept at night. I was having these episodes of non-epileptic seizures where my limbs would violently like flail all night.
Wow.
So I would actually like dread the time when I was like supposed to be sleeping because it was like so painful. I was having these like
Mm-hmm.
violent movements, and or dystonias and um gosh, what else? And then the POTS. So I could barely stand for at my sickest. I needed like assistance walking. Like I couldn't be even alone in a house just because it wasn't safe for me to be by myself because I was so sick and dizziness. I had fainting episodes and I just was my joints were very prone to going out and
Mm-hmm.
just very lax and so I'd have uh what do they call it, subluxations of the joints and um now I would say like most of the time I am pain free. I don't have debilitating like full body joint pain anymore or muscle aches. I sleep so much better. I think that's an area that still could be improved on, but I sleep, probably 7 to 8 hours a night. And I rarely have migraines, like maybe once a month, which before it was all the time. And so it just continues to get better. And I don't experience dizziness. Once I can stand, I can walk, I can do all those things without feeling terribly unwell. That was just something that it was difficult to explain, but like even just sitting up, it felt like just this like terrible feeling of sickness like over my whole body when I was sitting up or trying to stand. And that is no longer. And so for the most part, I am doing really well and I'm healthy and experiencing very minimal symptoms. I'd say the only things that I still am kind of working on are breathing related. And so I have a very narrow palate and I had a tongue tie and a small jaw, which makes my airway really small. And so I think that's another one of those like contributing factors to that like chronic illness and perfect storm sort of thing for a lot of people. But I've been doing myofunctional therapy, working on nasal breathing instead of mouth breathing because mouth breathing is
Oh
fight or
yeah.
flight breathing and nasal
Mm-hmm.
breathing is rest and repair. And so I've been working on that and that's been helpful.
You've
And yeah,
also had a lot of digestive issues, and I love how you mentioned that you highlight in your writings on your website and online that the digestion is so closely related to nervous system function and the vagal nerve and all those things, right? It's so key.
yes, absolutely. It's funny because I totally left that out, but that was a significant part. So I had the gastroparesis issues and I would take a couple of bites of food and I would feel super full and pain and bloated and I had really severe constipation and I um just felt nauseous all the time and I don't get any nausea anymore. None. And which is amazing. It's kind of crazy to even think that like any of that was my life and in um but I think why would somebody's stomach just stop working? You know, like
Mhm.
why? And I'm like, it makes sense to me now that I know so much about the nervous system, but I'm like, if you're not able to go into rest and digest mode, then of course you're not going to be able to digest at a proper rate, right? And
Mhm.
so it's so important for digestion. And I think sometimes when people try to focus only on diet and they don't recognize that their nervous system is dysregulated, then they are going to run into problems. Like it's not going to be enough to heal. And because you can't digest and absorb those nutrients even if you're eating a perfect diet.
Yeah, I
If you're
really think, oh, go ahead,
oh,
good. Yeah.
yeah.
I think it really depends on your level of health because I remember being super frustrated and where you're at. And I'll be like, wait, these people just went on the carnivore diet and they healed. And I went on the carnivore diet and I got worse, actually. It didn't help me. It actually made me worse. And yeah, so I was like, wait a minute, something's not right here. You know what I mean? Like, so not everything works for everybody, right? Number one, everybody has different nuances of what they need. It's definitely not a one size fits all approach when it comes to healing. And you have to address many factors, I think, is the other thing. Like you said, you're addressing the nutrition, you're addressing the toxic load in your environment, you know, you're addressing the, like I said, the environment, you're addressing the nervous system, you're addressing so many things, the circadian biology, like it has to be a multifactorial approach, but it also has to be unique, individualized, and nuanced to you, which can be sometimes hard to figure out, you know?
Yeah, and everybody has different things. Like it's interesting. I've seen some people say, you know, I needed to change my diet first for nervous system and brain retraining stuff to work. Or I've seen
Yeah.
the opposite where people need to address their nervous system and do some brain retraining before they can eat these nutrient dense foods and actually get the benefit from them. And so it just everybody is different in what modalities work best for them, and that can change as time goes on. So I think, you know, our diet needs can change as we change and evolve and heal. And so and in certain modalities, like it wouldn't make sense for me to spend an hour a day doing visualizations for the rest of my life, but for that year that I was really needing to heal my nervous system, that was important for me. And
Mhm.
so um it just it just depends.
Yeah, I think the visualization stuff is so important. I heard somebody say one time, in the quantum, if you know it, it already is. Like, so it's already happened. And I was like, that resonated with me so much when that person said that, and it stuck with me. And I used to do a lot of visualizations. Actually, the more you talk about it, I'm like, man, I should probably get back into that because I think we always ebb and flow about like different things that we use like on our own healing path and like what feels good. And that is resonating with me to remind myself to go back to doing that because I think it's a really great practice. And yeah, like if you can see it in the future, it already exists. So I
Yeah.
think it's, you
I
know,
think your beliefs matter so much. That's something I've learned is that in order to heal, you kind of have to be able to let go of limiting beliefs. And that also goes back
mhm,
to letting go of identifying with the diagnosis or saying that
mhm,
healing isn't possible for me. Like if you don't believe that you can get better, then you probably won't. And once you start to believe that you can heal, then that signals safety to your brain and allows you to go into that parasympathetic state where you can physically start to heal. And so it kind of drives me crazy when people say that, you know, well, I have a real illness, so that won't
um,
work. And I'm like,
mhm.
belief changes your biology. Like it
Yes.
literally causes physiological changes in your body, and it can, the mental and the physical can't be separated. Like there's no separation. It's just they're connected in every way. So
100%, a
Absolutely.
hundred
That's the quantum
percent.
part, right? That's the
yeah.
quantum aspect of it. So that makes me curious, Rachel, as to when you started to really embrace or learn about the circadian biology practices, and now you're doing all these wonderful things like being outside and getting the natural light and doing the earthing. When did that come along in your journey?
Yeah, I would say actually when not too long after, I would say 3 or 4 months after I started the carnivore diet was when I really started to get into some of those things. I think just because naturally, like once you learn about one thing, you kind of
Mhm.
go down all these different rabbit holes, right? And so that was when I think I first started with getting blue light glasses, and then I eventually got the Sunsight blue light glasses, and those added another layer of improvements in my sleep. And also just getting, I would say in the last year and a half or so, I have made an effort to always get natural light in my eyes first thing in the morning. And if I wake up earlier than the sun comes up, then I will wear my sunset blue light blockers until it gets light outside, and then I will try to get some like natural light. And sometimes it's only a couple minutes, you know, you don't have to be spending 2 hours outside to get benefit, you know, it just do what you can, right? And so that's definitely made a difference, and just kind of trying my best to be consistent with when I go to sleep and having kind of a wind down time before going to sleep, and minimizing, you know, I still sometimes watch shows before going to bed, but I always wear my sunset blue light blockers, and trying to, I guess, minimize technology in the morning and before going to bed as much as I can. And that's been really helpful with my sleep. And just also like, I mean, I spend a lot of time on screens, right? And I think most people do. Most modern jobs require people to have a lot of blue light exposure, right? And so I just try to do little things like, okay, every couple hours I'm gonna go outside and get some natural light, or when I can, just try to do work outside if that's possible. And yeah, just trying to get in as much natural light as I can, and improve my light environment, because I think that's huge for healing. And it's something that, like, I mean, I've even seen some possible studies that blue light can affect your collagen and just so many things that it's almost like, I think sometimes people don't think it can affect you that much, but light is very important.
Oh yeah, light is huge. Light is huge. And it's not that we need to be like fearful of these things. That's not the intention in it. But the thing is that artificial blue light is not what our body's attuned to be. You know, it's not what our biology is attuned to. We're attuned to, you know, natural sunlight, and artificial blue light is different. The ones, you know, from LEDs and screens, it's very different than the frequencies of the sun. And especially at the wrong time, like at nighttime, is even when it's more detrimental, because then it changes the release of your hormones, and all kinds of things can happen, and activates the nervous system in the wrong way. So these things really do have an effect. And yeah, it's hard to get people on board with light and how important it is, but once you start utilizing it, and I have to say, it's been huge. It's been huge on my own healing journey, especially with all my histamine issues that I've had. I had such a great week. We were in Louisiana like the just a few weeks ago, and I was like, the amount better I felt, because the UV index was a 7 already there, was just amazing, because my body needs it. My body needs the light. I neglected to give it for so long, and my body like loves it. So, and needs it. So I know that it's such a huge benefit. And I think it's going to come around more, all these things, you know, and I think, like I said, the more we can combine all of these things together, the better the healing outcome is going to be. And also have a way to, you know, not take it too far where you're being fearful and, you know, getting too engrossed in everything, but just finding a good balance, you know?
Absolutely. And I think in a way, it almost all stems back to our connection with nature, right? Like our modern society is so disconnected from nature in so many ways. And if you want to make it simple, like it really could just all come back to that, you know, because that connects to our food and our products and our light environment, and, you know, just nervous system health, so many things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. It's that reconnection. So I look at it two-pronged. So connection with nature, and then connection to others, right? That's what we need. We need both of those aspects of our lives to be robust, dynamic, and healthy and safe. So I know we're
Absolutely.
kind of at the end of the hour here, but I want to know what it is that lies in your future, Rachel, like your hopes and dreams and wishes, or what are you
Yeah.
working on, all the good things.
Yeah, I think honestly, I just hope to continue sharing hope to as many people as I possibly can that are living with chronic illness, because I know what it's like to be in such a dark place physically, mentally, and I just don't want anybody to have to be there any longer than than they need to. And so just spreading the message that healing is possible to as many people as I can is really my biggest purpose. And I've thought about doing coaching. I actually went through a coaching course, but I really just feel more led to trying to get more content out there, more hope out there. And I really actually would love to eventually start interviewing people myself on my YouTube channel and share other people's healing stories, because my story can only, go so far. Could be, some people might say, oh, well, she just got lucky. But if I share other people's stories too, then the more that are sharing, the more people will realize, oh, there's something to this. And yes, healing is possible. And so yeah, that's what I hope to continue doing. And I want to be a mom in the future. And so that's, I think, hopefully will be one of my biggest purposes as well.
I think you're going to do a lot of really good in the world, and you already are. And it's beautiful to hear. And you're going to be such a good mom. And I can't wait for all the things to come from you, because really, yeah, just if anybody just goes to your Instagram alone, they're going to be inspired, be like, okay, I can do this. Because I know you probably said you've been in probably those Facebook groups where it's, it's a lot of doom and gloom, but like, get away. If you're in a chronic illness journey, like I would say, get away from those kinds of things. And like I disconnected. One of the things I did to help heal is I disconnected from anything that I felt was unsupportive or was like, just negative. So having people like you in the feed, that's what I want to see. I want to see that light, that brightness, that hope, that inspiration. That's what I connect to. So you're already helping people. You're doing a great job.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. So this is such a great conversation, Rachel. We really enjoyed it. And yeah, added abundance to my day. So I love it.
Thanks for having me. That's great.
Yeah, thank you
so
for
much,
coming
Rachel.
on.
Thank you for your light and all of your service and showing up for yourself and everyone else. And I'm sure that you're going to have an amazing life with your kiddos in the future.
Thanks, Heather.
Yeah. All right. See you guys next week.